Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. And my name is Dan, and it's almost time for Gameweek 6 already, so we need to get on with some tier lists, I think, guys. So we're going to be doing a tier list for the best transfers for this game week. I hope you do enjoy this one. If you do, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. Without further ado, guys, let's have a look at the players, including on the tier list today. So, as always, guys, we have got the 20 most popular transfers of the game week so far, and we're going to put them all into this tier list, into these 5 categories: must buy, great transfer, optional, bad transfer, and avoid. And remember, guys, we're not ranking the players here. We're not ranking the player's ability or how many points we think the player's going to get. We are ranking the transfer itself. So, how likely would I be to make this transfer, for example? How good do I think each transfer is? So, hopefully, we're going to ace it. But it is going to be controversial as always. So we're going to start off with the 20th most popular transfer of the week and work our way to the most popular transfer of the week, who you might be able to see on the screen already. Where's he going to go this week? But we'll start off with Harrison, and like I say, because we're judging transfers, you do have to be a little bit harsh. So, for example, a player like Harrison, when there are so many other midfielders that I do think are slightly better options, I do wonder if we can put him that high. I would say ordinarily, I think I would probably put him as optional, but I just think there are just a few other midfielders I'd much rather have than him, and by getting Harrison, you're kind of basically telling yourself, all right, I can't have the other better player, which kind of makes it a bad transfer. If you're sacrificing, the opportunity cost is that you're not getting one of the slightly better midfielders at a similar price, then that kind of makes it a bad transfer. So Harrison, yes, he's done not too badly, but his underlying stats have not been amazing. I'm kind of wondering how Leeds are going to fare without Rodrigo, because Rodrigo has been the source of so many of their goals. Are they going to struggle now? I'm not sure that Harrison is the man to come in and get the goals. He's slightly more of a creator, in my opinion. So really, when we're looking for goals in an attacking team, I worry a little bit about Harrison and whether he's the best player. I maybe even prefer someone like Sinisterra, just because we know he's a little bit more of a goal scorer, and he's a little bit more exciting as an FPL pick as well. But there we go. Harrison, I'm going to put him in bad transfer. Not an avoid by any situation. I don't think he's the worst player you could ever get, but I would not really be thinking about him personally. Trent Alexander-Arnold is kind of, at this point, optional slash a great transfer. He's still one of those players I'd love to have in my team. But the Liverpool's defensive situation means that I think these Liverpool defenders are slipping out of the must-buy and must-have category, which is so weird because at the start of the season, I think we'd all agree that Trent was an absolute must-have, must-buy, but I think he has finally slipped down into a great transfer category because we're not getting a lot of attacking returns from Trent. We're getting a decent amount, but what really makes Trent worth his value is the fact that he was getting the attacking returns and he was getting the clean sheets as well. And 1 clean sheet in 5 game weeks is not a great situation for Liverpool. And it's not like they're looking like they're getting better anytime soon either. So, yeah, one to think about there. Liverpool's fixtures, by the way, guys, from about game week 8 onwards, the fixtures do get a lot tougher as well for Liverpool. So, just one to think about before you invest too heavily on new Liverpool defenders, I suppose. If you've gone this far without Trent, you might not need him at all. Right, Gabriel, I think is probably optional-ish. I think he's optional. I'm not sure he'd be top of my priority list. I just don't think he's an explosive enough player. Yes, he will get the occasional headed goal. And he's playing very well defensively, but playing well defensively doesn't get you FPL points. And I wonder if, you may as well just get a player like Saliba, who pretty much gives you the same thing as a baseline, those clean sheets, but is a little bit cheaper. So, Gabriel, would I be going for him? I mean, I'd maybe even slip him down into bad transfer. I just can't see a situation where I would go for him personally. I think, I prefer Saliba. I prefer some of the other defenders as well. I think there's some good value defenders to go for. Even a player like Kieran Trippier, who we'll come to in a second, I think I would prefer at the same price as Gabriel. So I think for that reason, he does have to drop down into bad transfer. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. And I'm going to maybe do the same thing with Veltman. The good thing about Veltman is the next 2 fixtures are good. They play Leicester and Bournemouth in the next 2, which is amazing. But the problem is that those fixtures are really good if you're an attacking player. And Veltman is not really the player to get attacking returns, to be honest. Lewis Dunk, maybe, because he's a bit more of a, set piece kind of target man there, so I would prefer Donk to Veltman. I'd prefer I'd prefer Estupinian, who is the left wing back, who I think is going to be super nailed on for Brighton. Estupinian is actually 0.1 million cheaper than Veltman. Another Brighton defender, gets the same amount of points for those clean sheets, but he's actually a really attacking player. We've seen him for a few games now, being in those really dangerous attacking areas, and I think that's the way you're probably going to want to capitalise on the next couple of fixtures for Brighton. So, for that reason, of the Brighton defenders, I actually rank Veltman bottom of all of them that I would be going for. Out of Estupinian would probably be the first Brighton defender I'd go for, then Lewis Dunk, and then Veltman. So it's not just a case of, going for the wrong player in FPL. It's not even going for the right player from his own club. So I'm just not really feeling this one. So I'm gonna put him in a void. I know I'm gonna get hate for that, but it's fine. I've got to stay true to myself. And Veltman is not even the second best defender to buy in his own club. So I think that says a lot. Right, Kieran Trippier next. I think he goes in optional. He does go in optional. The one problem is that Newcastle's defence, their stats are telling us that their defence is just not very good at the moment. They just have not been performing defensively. It's been kind of disappointing. But they have got some good fixtures, and Trippier is a player who can get those attacking returns, whether that's from free kicks, whether that's from taking corners, whether that's from getting up the pitch and playing those passes and those crosses. He hasn't done too much from open play so far this season, I have to admit. He's not recorded amazing stats, but it's one of those ones that's kind of optional. I don't think Trippier is a must-have. I'd probably put him low-tier optional. Like I say, there are just players I prefer. But, I mean, to be honest, defence right now, and if you've got Cancelo and Trent Alexander-Arnold already, and maybe, Reece James, or, after those three players, it's kind of like, pick whoever. Like, there's no one who's really massively standing out. So maybe Trippier is one of those whoever players. Now, Henderson is one of those ones that's really situational. So if you're one of those people who doesn't watch these videos and just skips to the end and looks at the tier list, you're going to be saying, why on earth have you put Henderson there? But making a goalkeeper transfer, in my opinion, unless your goalkeeper is injured or suspended, and unless you're on a wild card, I would not be making a goalkeeper transfer, pretty much full stop, particularly if you've got one of the goalkeepers who is pretty decent already. If you've got a Ramsdale, if you've got a Sanchez, if you've got a Raya, if you've got, even a Mendy, even like an Edison, whoever, if you've got one of those players, there is literally no reason for you to transfer in Henderson. Literally no reason at all. Nottingham Forest have been really, really poor defensively. They are conceding so many chances. They are conceding so many goals. We've seen that quite a lot this season. So when you're going for a goalkeeper whose only saving grace really is save points, and you're not really looking at getting many clean sheets for the rest of the season probably, that's not quite good enough. I think if you can get a goalkeeper for a similar price that's at least going to keep a clean sheet 1 in 3 games, then I think that's a little bit better than going for a goalkeeper who's probably only going to keep 1 clean sheet every 6, 7, 8 games maybe. So no disrespect for Henderson. I know he's scored a lot of points. He's saved 2 penalties so far this season, which really have boosted his points. And I know I said this last time, but you can't predict when a goalkeeper is going to save penalties. Do you really think that Henderson is just going to keep, 1, conceding penalties and 2, saving those penalties? If you really think that, then fair enough. But for me, I'm going to have to put it down as a bad transfer. Not an avoid, because I don't think he's the worst goalkeeper in the world to have. But I would not be making this transfer ever in a normal situation. The one exception, if you're on a wild card or something like that, then I can understand why you'd go for him. I still would not be prioritising him. So bad transfer. Nothing more, nothing less. Ødegaard, I think, is kind of low tier optional. I think I prefer him to Jack Harrison, but I think there are still better midfielders you can go for right now, who we will come to. We've got a couple more midfielders that come up, and there are, by the way, midfielders who I would prefer to Ødegaard who aren't even in this video, but maybe we'll save those players to talk about them in another video. But yeah, we're going to put Ødegaard there. Arsenal still playing very well. This next game is against Manchester United. Are we buying Arsenal players for this game? Maybe. Only if they're really good, though. Only if they're like a Jesus or a Martinelli. Or we kind of be considering them, I think, for this particular game week. But yeah, Ødegaard, I think it's optional. He's like, if you're looking for a Rodrigo replacement, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are, I think Ødegaard is kind of an option. You could go for him if you fancy him. But I don't think he's a must-have by any stretch. Andreas, in terms of 4.5 million players, like, he's a must-buy. If you are in the market for a 4.5 million midfielder, Andreas is definitely the one you want to go for. And honestly, I'm getting to a point where I'm thinking Andreas is one of those players that you could actually play every single game week if you wanted to. Like, I know we think 4.5 million players, that's a bench player really, or a covering player, but you actually could play him. For his value for money, he's an absolutely insane player. You must have him. You must have him. But is he a must buy? Is the transfer, the getting in Andreas, a good transfer? Depends. If you're switching formation, for example, and you wanna change your formation a little bit, and you want to downgrade one of your midfielders so you can upgrade one of your forwards, for example, then Andreas is the must-buy player. But if you're just buying him for the sake of it, then just to play him, and you're just randomly buying him, you're not really restructuring, you're not reinvesting the money, then that would make him a bad transfer. So all in all, I think we'll put him in the middle, because that one is really, really situational, depending on what you are up to and what's going on with your specific team. Isak, I kind of like. I really kind of like him. He looked so good against Liverpool. I think there's some big things to come. He could have had a brace if it wasn't for 6 inches. That's all it was, 6 inches. That is the that was the difference between Isak being onside for that second goal. And guys, I've been told on high authority that 6 inches is a lot. So 6 inches, that's a really, really large length. But in football terms, it's very little. So we're gonna put him in. I think he's a great transfer. I actually do. I actually really like him. Like, it's a little bit risky, don't get me wrong. It's far more risky than a player I'd usually be putting in a great transfer. But I've got a good feeling about this one. I like Newcastle. From an attacking point of view, I think they're looking good. And I think once they've got Sam Maximan back, Bruno Guimaraes back, they're going to start looking really, really good. And Isak is going to really benefit from that. Bernardo is... I mean, Man City are scoring so many goals. I guess he has to go in optional. I think he does have to go in optional. I do prefer him to players like Harrison and Ødegaard, but maybe because he's a little bit more expensive, that kind of makes sense. He seems like a decent pick. He's staying at Man City now. We know that. We know he's a fantastic player. He's occasionally playing, quite frequently now, playing on the wing, which we didn't know if that was going to happen or not. Maybe his minutes are going to start getting reduced when, like, Grealish is back. Maybe Mahrez is going to play a few more games. I don't know. That's the only risk there. When De Bruyne comes back into the team, maybe Bernardo is the man to be sacrificed. So he is a risky one, but all Man City players are rotation risk. We kind of accept that. But they score so many goals that you kind of got to think the good outweighs the bad in a way. So, yeah, we'll put Bernardo there. Cancelo was an interesting one, guys, because Cancelo was once again one of those players that people rush to sell because they panic, because they see one game week where a player gets a one-pointer and assume those one-pointers are going to happen every week. Well, what happened to Cancelo? He scores. Cancelo is like he's just a really good FPL asset. Like, I think because I rate Man City's defence a little bit higher than Liverpool's at the moment, quite a bit higher than Liverpool's at the moment, I think we have to put Cancelo into must-buy. I really think he's one of those players you just kind of have to have at the moment. Maybe we put him down into great. His underlying attacking numbers are not great, but do they have to be great? He's pretty much, going to get a clean sheet most game weeks. He is going to get the occasional attacking return as well. That's a really good player. That's a really good transfer. Am I going to put him in must-buy? He's nailed on as well, which is really good. Super fit, not injury prone at all. Can play every game in the season if he needs to, which is rare among Man City players. I'm gonna put him in must buy, but I'm not super confident about that one. Sterling I like, to be fair. Sterling I like because he's playing very well. One of the only players who is playing well for Chelsea, and Chelsea do still have some good fixtures coming up. The difficulty with Sterling is his price. A lot of people will be selling players like De Bruyne and Salah in order to get Sterling. And if you're doing those transfers, then I think it's a bad transfer. Like, I think, objectively a bad transfer. Like, De Bruyne is going to come back into this Man City team at the weekend and he's going to smash it. Salah, you can criticise him all you want. He got 2 assists and got a 10-pointer. 10-pointer is not a bad amount of points. And, it's only because we're making comparisons to players like Haaland, who has kind of never been seen before in the Premier League. Wow, what a player. That we are kind of making that comparison. And Salah 10-pointer, you take that all day. And he's been, other than that freak situation where he didn't score any points in a 9-0 win against Bournemouth, I think he's been ticking along fairly nicely. So, like, if you're selling Salah for Sterling, I think that's wrong. Like, selling De Bruyne for Sterling, I think that's wrong. If you can get Sterling in some other way, I doubt you will be able to, or at least if you do, you'll be struggling around a little bit. Then I guess we can put him in optional. And if he was easier to get, if he was priced at like 8.5 million or something, I think he'd be a great transfer. Like maybe even a must buy. Maybe not a must buy, but like 8.5, 9 million, I think he becomes a great transfer. I think he's just too difficult to reach without making a major sacrifice elsewhere. So he goes into optional. I'm even going to drop him behind Andreas. But aside from that, looks like a really good pick, in really good form. Like him a lot. Luis Diaz, great transfer. Played well again against Newcastle, even though he didn't get any goal returns. Like, as a non-Luis Diaz owner, I was kind of like, ugh, I just wish I had Luis Diaz instead of Robertson. I was just thinking that basically the whole game. So, for that reason, maybe we put him... I think we put him in optional. I think if you can restructure your money a little bit, he could be a really decent replacement for Rodrigo, if you're looking to sell Rodrigo, who, by the way, guys, I know I said it in last stream, but right now, we don't have any guaranteed information, but I would expect that Rodrigo's probably going to be out for about 2 weeks. So, yeah, Luis Diaz, I think if you can restructure a little bit, could be a decent replacement. For example, if you're selling Robertson and Rodrigo and replacing them with Luis Diaz and, you know, a defender, you know, who around 5 million or less, or 5.5 million or less, then I think you've got a good thing going there. So, yeah, Luis Diaz, I think high tier optional. I don't think he's a must-buy necessarily, but I think he's playing pretty well. I quite like him among the midfielders. Perisic, I'm really concerned about this one. I'm really concerned about Perisic because I think he might get rested, rotated against Fulham in Game Week 6. I think Sessegnon's going to play over Perisic. I really do think that. I would be like, if I had to guess at the chance of Perisic playing, I would say like 40%. Obviously, if he does play, then that's good. But they're saying that Fulham can score goals. They've proven they score goals against anyone, Mitrovic and the like. So even if Perisic does play, is he guaranteed a clean sheet? If he does play, is Perisic making it to 60 minutes? Certainly, if I already had Perisic, I wouldn't be selling him. But would I be buying Perisic this week? I mean, I could buy Perisic this week, but I don't think I have it in me to do it. So I think I'm going to have to put him down, even like here, as a bad transfer, unfortunately. If you already have him, keep him. But I think this is a really dodgy week to bring him in because there's a good chance of him getting rotated. Even if he doesn't, he may not even last to 60 minutes. So, yeah, this is probably not the week to buy Perisic. Just my opinion. Saliba, I think, you know, just decent-ish value, cheap defender to go for. Arsenal do have some difficult fixtures coming up, but look, Arsenal have been pretty decent defensively this season. Yes, maybe that's partially to do with the fixtures, but look, he's 4.7 million. It's a pretty cheap. It's like a cheap version of Gabriel. You get pretty much the same thing for a cheaper value. So I think he is optional. If you're looking for a cheap defender, you can do worse. You can do better, I think, but you can do worse as well. Personally, I would prefer in the cheap, like really cheap, like under 5 million defender category. My two favourites are at the moment are Nico Williams, who plays Bournemouth next and has just insane underlying attacking numbers. So Nico Williams really looking good for attacking numbers. I would be surprised if he got a goal or an assist in that game against Bournemouth. And my other player is Estepinian, who I've mentioned a few times already over the last few days. Another player I'm kind of really targeting for these next couple of fixtures for Brighton. So slightly prefer those players to Saliba. I would put those two players actually probably in great transfer, but this is about the most popular transfers. This is who are rating the most popular transfers, but it doesn't mean I can't sneak in a couple of other minor FPL opinions in there. Now, Martinelli, if you don't have him already, I think he has to be a great transfer. I'll put him top of the great transfer. He's like almost a must-buy, but not quite. He's just in such fantastic form, and if you don't have Martinelli already, there is your Rodrigo placement. Don't even think about it. I don't think you need to do anything. You just get Rodrigo. Now, Martinelli in for Rodrigo. Now, the problem is most people already have Martinelli. So, in that sense, it's kind of difficult to say he is the best Rodrigo replacement because for most people, you know, that's not going to be possible because you already have Martinelli. So, yeah, still a great transfer, still great form, still scoring goals, still some good fixtures from an attacking point of view. Like, I think Manchester United, I think Arsenal can score a couple of goals there. And if they are scoring a couple of goals, it's going to be Martinelli, it's going to be Jesus. These are going to be the players involved in those goals. Now, Mitrovic, I think, is also, if you're happy to make a double transfer, I think Mitrovic could genuinely be an amazing Rodrigo replacement. I'm going to put him like here, slightly below Martinelli, because Mitrovic's fixtures are quite tough. Spurs next, isn't it? And then I can't remember now who they have after that. Chelsea, Liverpool. It's someone like not easy. I probably should have made a note of that before this video, but we move. But anyway, the point is, Mitrovic, I think, is another really good replacement for Rodrigo as well, because if you can do it in 2 transfers, he's about the same price as Rodrigo. What you do is if you have like a 4.5 million forward in your team, you drop them down to, you upgrade that player to Mitrovic, and then you downgrade Rodrigo to, like, I mean, if you don't have Andreas already, then maybe that's the one, and you can make the double Fulham switch ahead of 2 difficult fixtures. It sounds crazy, but Mitrovic is scoring against anyone right now. I think he's proven by this point that he kind of is fixture proof in a way, isn't he? And after that, once these bad fixtures are out the way, what's he going to do against the easier fixtures? I don't know. The guy's a machine. He's doing so well. Like, do not underestimate how good Mitrovic has been this season. Certainly, I'm looking to get him in very soon personally. So I think he has to be a great transfer. And you know what? I was slightly... if I was to get Mitrovic, and I could get Mitrovic this week, it would slightly ruin my longer term plans a little bit. So for that reason, I can't. But I'm kind of jealous of you guys who can easily get to him. Zaha, I think, is another very good replacement for Rodrigo. Arguably in the same region as Martinelli. In fact, I'm actually going to sneak him just behind Martinelli, in between Martinelli and Mitrovic. I think these guys are really good transfers in. Zaha slightly more expensive, so you may need to free up some budget elsewhere if you don't already have something in the bank. But underlying stats-wise, Zaha is topping the list. He is topping everything. You know, he's doing really well at the moment in those underlying numbers. He is creating a lot. He is taking a hell of a lot of shots in really dangerous areas. You know, he's on penalties as well, so that's adding to his numbers as well. He's looking really good at the moment. There is still, like, I'm recording this on transfer deadline day, so I've seen rumours floating around about Zaha getting a move to this club or that club. Probably not going to happen, but I would just wait until the end of transfer deadline day before committing on Zaha. There's no point in making that transfer now if you can make it in a few hours' time and you know that he's staying at Palace. You may as well just identify the situation with that before making the move. But yeah, very good player with insane underlying numbers. Pascal Gross, I'm actually going to... I don't think I'll put him quite as high as some of these guys. I think I'll put him like here. I still think he's in the great transfer category, because I do think he is. But I do prefer, you know, if you're looking for that Rodrigo replacement or that new midfielder, I do prefer Martinelli and Zaha. If you can do it in 2 transfers, I do still prefer Mitrovic. So I would say that Gross is like the next option after that. It's still a good pick. You know, like I said about like Brighton earlier, really good fixtures. They've got Leicester and then Bournemouth. These are 2 fixtures where you hope that Brighton will score a few goals in. And Gross has certainly been the player to get among the goals at the moment. But just he's not got the same star factor as Martinelli and Zaha, who you know are going to be good throughout the season. You know that this is not form. You know this is the fact that they're very good players. Gross, you wonder maybe if it's form. And if it is form, that can go at any moment. So a little bit more of a risky player. But in the next 2 fixtures, if he can keep up the form, it's going to be insane. But slightly more risky than your Martinellis and your Zahas, who are a little bit more reliable long term. And finally, the big man. Should we get him in? Should we get him on there? Now, he is... when playing, a must-buy, top of the must-buy. I can't even deny it. Like, there's nothing I can do about the fact that Haaland is absolutely must-buy, must-have, you know, captain every single game week. Now, the problem is, I am not 100% convinced if he's going to be benched or not this weekend. And I know there will be some people in the comments right now saying he is 100% playing at the weekend. There will be other people who will say he is 100% getting benched this weekend. The fact is, no one sensible is 100% sure about anything. If there was a game week where we've reached peak risk for Haaland benching, well, we've reached it. We've reached the peak, the peak risk of a benching. Now, I'm not saying that even if he does get benched, if he gets 20, 30 minutes off the bench, he can still score a hat-trick in that time, by the way. So, I'm not ruling that one out. But we do have to consider that. Now, most of the opinion polls that I've seen have put it about 50-50 that Haaland starts or not. Maybe stretching towards 55% chance he starts, 45% chance he goes to the bench in order to rest him for that midweek Champions League game against Sevilla. There was also the fact that he scored a hat-trick, so he's going to want to continue that form. There's also the fact that, obviously, he didn't actually have to put that much work in that game. And also Alvarez played 90 minutes. But there's also the fact that Haaland has it, kind of, in the contract negotiations. The whole idea was he was signing for Man City so he could get rotated. Pep Guardiola's comments of, yes, when Haaland is not going to play 3 games in a week, he's not going to play a game every 3 days. The Champions League game is 3 days after Manchester City's game at the weekend. I have to drop him down. I have to drop him down into great transfer for that, which is still good because he can still score off the bench. But I just don't want to make a promise to you guys that he's going to start this week, game week. I can't make you that promise because I really do think it is 50-50, maybe 60-40, maybe you take 60-40. But I think basically it has to come down to you. Like, I can sit here and give my opinion as much as I like. I am not going to commit either way to this one, so I'm going to leave it with you guys. We're going to leave it with you. What do you think is going to happen? If you think Haaland is going to start this week, he's a must-buy. If you don't think he is, he's still a great transfer. So it's kind of up to you. If you think he's going to start, put him in your mind into must-buy. If you don't think he's going to start, then I still think you need to consider him, even if you think he's going to be on the bench. And if you have no other problems in your team, I think I would be buying him. Probably. Depending on who you're selling. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Yeah. Just bear in mind that rotation risk. I've warned you now, if you want to go for him, there is that small risk. Small risk, pretty big risk to be fair. But there we go, guys. That is on your screen right now. The tier list for Game Week 6 for your transfers. And now it's time to ruin me in the comments. I'll enjoy reading those ones. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you haven't done already. And please don't be too mean to me in the comments. I can't handle it. I can handle it. It's fine. It's part of the job description. Yeah, I really do appreciate you guys watching. We're going to try and do a second video today. I'm going to try and get Buy Sell Keep Avoid out today as well. Probably be this evening. If it's not out this evening, it'll be very early on Friday. I'll just release it really early on Friday morning. And then we'll do team selection as well on Friday. And then it'll be deadline day on Saturday, all over again. Here we go. The fun doesn't stop. But there we go, guys. I will see you hopefully on another video later, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.